Thank you for watching this video from KingswaySoft. Today, I will be introducing the SSIS Integration Toolkit for Microsoft Dynamics 365 CRM. The SSIS Integration Toolkit for Microsoft Dynamics 365 CRM is a cost-effective, easy-to-use, and high-performance data integration solution. It utilizes Microsoft SQL Server Integration Services SSIS capabilities. In today's demo, we will show you our software running in the SQL Server 2012 environment. If you are using a different SQL Server version, the interface will be slightly different. Also, we will be showing you the integration between two CRM organizations, which does not have to be the case for your integration scenario. In your case, most likely you will use CRM as a source and use your other application or database system as a target. Or it could be the other way around, with your other application or database system as a source and have CRM as your target. With that said, SSIS is capable to integrate Microsoft Dynamics 365 CRM with virtually any other application or database systems. To get started, let's create a simple SSIS project. This tutorial will already assume that you have the SSIS bits installed. Otherwise, you will not see the SSIS project type here. In the Business Intelligence template, select the Integration Services project and give your project a name. Press OK to create the solution. For this demonstration, we will migrate account records from the CRM AdventureWorks organization to Contoso. SSIS is a platform that can be used to implement data migration and application integration using simple drag-and-drop features. To begin the SSIS implementation using our toolkit, we will create a connection to the Microsoft Dynamics 365 CRM Server. Let's start by right-clicking the Connection Manager area and select the New Connection option. Select Dynamics CRM and press Add. If you do not see this option, go back and make sure that our software is properly installed on your machine. We are now prompted to enter the connection information to the CRM server. The first option you'll notice in the interface is the authentication type. There are several different options to choose from depending on the deployment type of your CRM server. For instance, if you're using partner-hosted or an IFD CRM server, you would choose the federation option. If you are using Office 365 CRM Online, you would select the Online Federation. In our example today, we will use a local CRM server, so we'll select Active Directory. The following option allows you to specify the CRM Discovery Server URL, which you can use to discover your CRM organizations. The URL will depend on your CRM server's setup. The Service Endpoint option specifies how you would like to connect to the CRM server, and this will depend on the CRM server version that you are currently using. The timeout is set to 120 seconds, but this can be adjusted. In the case where you would use CRM Bulk Data Load API, you may need to increase the setting since the service call would take longer. In the next area of the form, we must specify the authentication information in order to connect to the CRM server. If you are using a local CRM instance, you may use the Integrated Authentication option. By clicking on the drop-down button in Organization, the toolkit will show all the available organizations that the user has access to on the CRM server. Let's choose AdventureWorks. Let's navigate to the Proxy Server page, where you can configure proxy server settings if a proxy may be required. There are three proxy mode options: No Proxy, Auto Detect, and Manual. When the Manual option is selected, the following fields will be enabled to specify the proxy server, port, and authentication details. The Advanced Settings page allows you to specify some advanced connection settings. In the Home Realm URI, you can specify your URI of the Cross-Realm STS metadata endpoint. This option may be required for certain deployment, such as a situation where you have multiple identity providers. The CRM Server URL is the actual URL that is used by the connection manager to make service calls to CRM. In the case that the connection manager is parameterized using the connection string property, CRM Server URL can be left empty, in which case our software will automatically find out the organization's service URL using CRM Discovery Service based on the provided CRM organization name. If it is intended to target a different CRM organization from the design time setup, the CRM Server URL should be changed in the connection string. It is not sufficient enough to only change the CRM organization name in the connection string, as the CRM Server URL takes precedence. Also, in a multi-node cluster, you would change the CRM Server URL to specifically target a particular node. There is also an option for retry and intermittent errors. This option is intended to help recover from possible intermittent outages or disruption of service, so that the integration does not have to be stopped due to temporary networking issues. We have designed this option so that it should only retry when it's deemed to be safe to do so, but there may be exceptions. Lastly, we have a new feature that allows you to ignore certificate errors. Before we hit OK, we should test the connection to make sure our information is correct and we can connect successfully. Since we are connecting to two CRM organizations, we should rename this first connection manager for clarity. Now we'll create another CRM connection for the destination. This process will be similar, however this time we will choose a different CRM organization. We'll rename this to Contoso. The next step is to use the data flow task to demonstrate the integration between two CRM organizations. If you're using SSIS 2012 or later, you should automatically see these data flow components in the toolbox of the data flow view. If you do not see any components, you can click the SSIS Toolbox button. Note that if you're using SSIS 2008 R2 or earlier, you would need to manually add these components to the SSIS Data Flow Toolbox. In the SSIS Toolbox, you will see the components from our SSIS Toolkit. The CRM Source component can be used to read data from the Dynamics 365 CRM Server, while the CRM Destination Component can be used to write data to the CRM Server. The CRM OptionSet Mapping component can be used to manage the translation and mapping of CRM pick list option set values. For the purpose of this demo, we will look at the source and destination components first. Let's start with the CRM source. First, we'll drag the CRM source component to the surface of the data flow. Double-click the CRM source component to bring up its editor form. Here, we'll specify the connection manager, which will be AdventureWorks. The batch size option allows us to specify how many records we want to retrieve each time. The default value is 2000. The maximum allowed value is 5000. The CRM source component supports 4 source types: entity, fetch XML, entity changes, and audit logs. Your source type will depend on your business requirements. Entity allows you to visually pick which fields you want to read from CRM entity. Fetch XML is an advanced option that gives you a lot more flexibility when reading data from the CRM server. Entity changes require CRM 2015 Update 1 or later with a change tracking option enabled for the entity in Microsoft Dynamics 365 CRM. Audit logs allow you to retrieve audit data from the CRM server according to the query specified. For the time being, we will use entity as the source type. We will now have to specify the source entity. To do so, click the drop-down button. We will be prompted to select one of the entities that's available on the CRM server. For this demo project, let's choose Account. The next option allows us to specify a CRM user account to impersonate. This is only necessary when you want to read from special entities which require impersonation, such as the user query entity. There is also an output time zone setting, which allows you to specify the time zone of all the datetime fields output. The default is UTC time. However, you have two other options that you can use, including adjust the time zone of the connection user or the impersonation user. We will use the default. Next, you'll need to specify what columns or CRM fields you want to read data from. By default, all CRM fields are selected. This may not be the best practice. You should only select the fields that you need to use in the downstream pipeline components. If we now switch to Fetch XML mode, the component will automatically populate the Fetch XML query based on the fields that have been selected. You can also insert SSIS variables to parameterize this query. We also support opening files or CRM views using the toolbar commands. When the Open View option is selected, a Select a View dialog will appear, which can be used to get saved Fetch XML queries in CRM. The View drop-down list contains both system views and personal views of the connection user. Notice that we have a Refresh CRM Metadata button to refresh the component to the latest CRM metadata. This is especially useful for cases where we have created or modified any fields in the CRM system for the specified entity, which would otherwise require deleting and recreating the component to reflect the mapping on the columns page. We're going to click the OK button to finish configuration of the source component. The next step is to create a CRM Destination Component. Our goal is to pull data from one CRM organization and write to another. You may not necessarily need to use the CRM Destination Component in your scenario as mentioned before. You may be writing data into another application or database system. To illustrate the purpose of the Destination Component, this will be our target component. Let's drag the CRM Destination Component to the data flow design surface and connect the CRM source to the CRM destination. We'll double-click the CRM Destination Component to bring up its editor form and select Contoso as the destination connection. The next thing you'll need to specify is the action type. The CRM Destination Component offers 7 different actions when writing data to the CRM server. From this list, you can see some obvious actions, including create, update, and delete. We also have some unique actions, including upsert, merge, convert, and execute workflow, which are designed for specific integration needs or scenarios. The upsert action performs an update or insert and offers a robust solution that helps manage ongoing changes. This action will depend on whether a match can be found based on the matching criteria that you have defined. These 4 matching criteria options will also apply to the update action. The matching criteria options will be explained later. Merge will take 2 CRM records as its input and perform a CRM merge action. The convert action can be used to drive the CRM sales lifecycle by converting lead records all the way to invoices. It is also possible to convert an owner team to an access team. The execute workflow action can be used to execute CRM workflow against a large number of CRM records. It also enables the capability to schedule the execution of CRM workflow utilizing SSIS scheduling capabilities. In this demonstration, we will select the upsert action. Next, we'll need to specify the destination entity, which is the entity you want to write data into. In our case, it will be account. For the upsert action, we need to define an upsert matching criteria. As mentioned before, these 4 matching criteria options also apply to the update action. The first matching criteria is primary key, where we use the CRM record's GUI ID to identify whether the record is an existing record in the target system. If it does not exist, the upsert action will create the record. The second option is CRM duplicate detection. This requires you to set up the CRM duplicate detection properly in the system. This option matches CRM records based on these CRM duplicate detection rules. We do not normally recommend using this option. The third option is manually specify. When this option is selected, it will require us to go to the columns page to choose which fields or field we want to use for matching purposes. Notice the checkbox by each field name. If all the fields chosen match any records in the system, the component will perform an update. Otherwise, it will create a new record. The last option is CRM alternate key. This option allows you to uniquely identify a record aside from the primary key. This relies on the alternate key being set up in CRM. Note that this alternate key is a feature introduced in CRM 2015 Update 1, which is not available to a previous CRM version. For the purpose of this demonstration, we will choose manually specify. Now we have to specify how we would like to handle multiple matches. The first option is update all. The second option is to update one, in which the component will only update the first matching record. The third option is ignore, in which the source row will be ignored when multiple matches are found. Lastly, raise an error will report an exception when multiple matches are found. We offer a few options that will help you define your integration features within our optional settings. These options are designed to address some specific integration requirements. The Remove Unresolvable References option will perform a check to see if the lookup reference exists before writing to the CRM server. This option is typically not recommended due to performance reasons. The Send Datetime Values in UTC format option will indicate that the incoming datetime values from your source are already in UTC format. When this option is not selected, the input values will be treated as the current user's local time. The Enable CRM Duplicate Detection option uses CRM duplicate detection rules to detect if an incoming record is a duplicate in the CRM system. Ignore null-valued fields does not post any null values to the CRM server. Remove invalid characters will remove any invalid characters from the input, which can avoid an XML exception when the component tries to construct the SOAP request to be sent to the CRM server. The Ignore Unchanged Fields is a useful option when using the update or upsert action. If the incoming value remains unchanged for a particular field, its value will not get posted to the CRM server, which in turn will avoid firing any unnecessary workflows, plugins, or audits. This option may improve your performance significantly. By using a batch size greater than 1, this will specify how many records you want to submit to the CRM server in a batch using the Bulk Data Load API. The limit for the batch size is 1,000, but we recommend to use a value of 250 or lower. Using Bulk API will significantly improve your performance, in particular for CRM Online. In the case that created by or modified by fields are mapped in the destination component and you have specified a batch size, it is recommended that you sort the input rows by these two fields, as the destination component will produce the best performance when they are sorted. This can possibly be done in your source component if applicable. Alternatively, you can use an SSIS sort component to perform the sorting before sending to the destination component. Also, when using Bulk API, you may want to consider increasing the timer parameter in the connection manager, as extra time may be needed to process the number of requests at CRM Server side. The Change Flag Field option can be enabled when the Ignore Unchanged Fields option is selected. This is used in special cases to help track or tag where the last change of the record was initiated. For instance, if the source of your SSIS data flow is coming from your ERP system, you can have an input value for this field. We will only write to this field if there are any changes to other fields when the Ignore Unchanged Fields option is selected. Now let's take a look at the Columns page. As we have selected to perform the upsert action on manually specified fields, we need to specify the key columns to be used for matching. As you can see, the mapping has already been done for us based on the name match. Most of the time, the upsert matching criteria is based on one key column, but there might be cases that you use more than one key column, which is often referred to as the composite key. When working with CRM lookup field, often you know the lookup record's name, but you don't necessarily know the record's ID in GUID format. If that's the case, you can use the text lookup feature, and you will be passing in a text value and letting the component do the lookup for you by finding the GUID value of the record. Let's create a text lookup setting for owner ID field. The first thing we need to do is change the input from owner ID to owner ID name, so we are passing in the owner's name instead of its ID. Then we click the button to bring up the text lookup configuration window. Notice that we have two entities here because the CRM owner ID is the lookup field that targets the system user and the team entities. Within the lookup method, we have four options: to use the primary field, manually specify, alternate key, or to opt out for that specific target entity. You can choose to perform lookup using CRM alternate key for the specific entity. This option can utilize CRM's alternate key for lookup purposes. Additionally, this option provides the capabilities to look up on more than one field as defined by the alternate key selected. In the case that the alternate key is defined by two CRM fields in the lookup entity, the input value passed to the lookup field will be used for the first field of alternate key setup, and you will need to specify an input for the secondary key field. Let's configure the lookup on the full name field for system user. For team entity, we are going to choose the Use Primary Field option. There is also the option to exclude inactive records from being used in the lookup process. We can also choose an optional default value when there is no match found. When a default value is entered, it will default to this particular user when the lookup of the input value fails. The text lookup feature comes with a number of configurable options which are designed for specific integration scenarios. You can configure the lookup's case sensitivity. By default, it is a case-sensitive lookup. You can also report errors when there are duplicates. And there is also an option that allows to skip the record if the lookup fails. The cache strategy option is important to note. The text lookup feature involves populating an internal cache. In the case that you choose full cache, we will populate a full cache when the lookup is first hit. This is recommended when the number of records in the lookup entity is relatively small and/or the primary entity has a large number of records. The partial cache mode is recommended in the case where you are processing a small number of records, but your lookup entity contains a large number of records. The last page is the error handling page, where there are 3 error handling mechanisms to choose from. The default option is fail on error, where the entire data flow will fail as soon as an error occurs. There is also the redirect rows to error output, where the error output will contain the failed records with extra columns, such as error code, error column, and error message. These 3 error columns can usually help you identify why the error occurred. The Ignore Error option is generally not recommended. There is also the Enable Columns for Default Output section, which you can use to enable or disable the additional columns in the Destination Component's default output. The CRM Record ID gives you the newly created CRM Records ID, and IsNew tells you if the record is a newly created one or an existing record that has been updated. Since our version 8.0 release, there is an option to enable the skipped rows output that will contain any records that have been skipped during the process. Let's click OK to finish configuring this component. Lastly, I will add some dummy data reader destination components to illustrate the error handling page we've just discussed. The default output contains what was successful upon executing the task. Depending on additional columns selected, it can include CRM Record ID and/or IsNew. As mentioned before in our recent release, we have a skipped rows output. The error output contains those records that have failed upon executing the task. This option is enabled only when Redirect Rows to Error Output is selected. The error output will contain the failed records with extra columns, like error code, error column, and error message. We have now established our data flow. We can retrieve data from the CRM AdventureWorks organization and write data to Contoso. Now let's execute this data flow task. Going back to Visual Studio, I will briefly talk about the OptionSet mapping component. You would place this transformation component in between the source and destination component. Imagine you have an ERP system that has a picklist or OptionSet field, where you need to migrate or integrate with your CRM application on an ongoing basis. Your ERP system has a predefined set of option values for the picklist or OptionSet field, which may be different than what you have in your CRM system, and you don't want to change the option values on either side. In this case, you would find the OptionSet mapping components useful, as it can help translate any input value into an option that Microsoft Dynamics 365 CRM accepts. Let's try to set up an OptionSet mapping component. In this example, I am going to show you a CRM to CRM OptionSet mapping, which does not have to be the case for your integration scenario. We're going to break the connection between the source and destination components so that we can add an OptionSet mapping component in between. This is a typical setup for an OptionSet mapping component since it is a transformation component. Double-click to open the Components Editor window. The input column is the column from the source system where you will be receiving data from. It is the input column where you would want to translate its text values to CRM OptionSet values. In the Target CRM OptionSet or Picklist field area of the form, you will specify the Destination CRM Connection Manager. Next, you'll select the entity with the OptionSet field that you are working with. After this, you will need to specify the OptionSet or Picklist field, which allows you to specify which CRM OptionSet or Picklist field you would need for the mapping. In the mapping page, the top part of the window has a grid where you can create mapping values. You can add mapping entries or delete it. The Import button allows you to import from a mapping that you have previously saved or exported, while the Export button allows you to export all mapping values in the grid to an XML file so you can edit this file by using a text editor of your preference. The second part of the window is handling of non-matched values, where you would specify how you would like to handle values that do not have any matches in your destination component. There are 5 options available. The Create option will create a new option using the input value for the specified CRM OptionSet or Picklist field when there is no match found. You can specify the input column, which contains the internal integer value when creating the option. The replace as an existing option allows you to specify the option value to be used if no match has been found. We have a couple more options that you can choose from depending on your business requirements. It is worth mentioning that the output value of the input column from the OptionSet mapping component can be directly mapped to a CRM OptionSet or picklist field in the CRM Destination Component, as the field accepts either an integer value or a label value. This sums up the basic overview of our OptionSet mapping component. This concludes a demonstration of our SSIS Integration Toolkit for Microsoft Dynamics 365 CRM components. Thank you for watching this video. For any further assistance, please feel free to contact us.